Hello, my name is Charles Upton, and I titled this piece "The Psychology of Hell" because I thought I might get some people interested through expressing something lurid. But what this actually is a review and essentially an ad for a book which was written by my wife, Jennifer Doane Upton, and I had the privilege to edit it. And it's called this. Let's see if we get a good picture of it. It is called Dark Way to Paradise, Dante's Inferno in Light of the Spiritual Path. So there it is. And years ago, for some reason, I said to myself, what we need now is a good portable Catholic church. And what I meant by that, I don't know if I know why I said that then. I think I do now. I think the portable Catholic church is, in a sense, the Divine Comedy. Divine Comedy has everything in it that was in the medieval synthesis, everything that could become part of the medieval synthesis from paganism going back God knows how long. And it really is a total picture of the spiritual path. There's three parts to it, of course: the Inferno, the Purgatorio, and the Paradiso. The Inferno is where you learn of the darkness in your soul and the darkness in the world which has infected your soul. In the Purgatorio, you are purged of that darkness, you go through it, you're relieved of it by God's mercy, and then the Paradiso is all the spiritual understanding and insight and vision that can come after that purgation is complete. So, the reason I call this also the Psychology of Hell is that this book is written basically from a metaphysical standpoint. It's based on metaphysical principles, which are the always so. They're what is always the case. And it quotes a lot from the writers of the traditionalist or perennialist school, René Guénon, Fritjof Schumann, and those people. Quotes also a lot from the Greek fathers of the church, like Maximus the Confessor. So it has a lot of quotes in it. But it basically takes these metaphysical principles and then looks how they work in terms of the darkness in people's souls. I mean, we're so used to looking at sin in strictly moral terms. Well, you have to look at it in moral terms, but there's more to it than that. It's like, this is bad, you're not supposed to do it because our tradition says the law says against the law, you're not supposed to do this. Or this is bad because we can see the social consequences of it, which are very negative. Murder is not good for society. Total self-indulgence is not good for society. All this. Well, this is all very well, but actually how it works out in the inner psychology of sin and vice is what I think makes this book probably unique in Dante studies. So what I'm going to do is just going to read you part of one chapter, and this is the chapter on Canto 13 of the Inferno, and this is the world of the suicides. People who have done themselves in end up in this state. So it starts out with a little story of the Divine Comedy as Dante and his spiritual guide Virgil are traveling through hell, because Dante, for some reason, has to see the darkness in his soul. He has to see it in this life, and that's what makes it part of the spiritual path. We may see that darkness in the afterlife, but it's a lot better to see it and deal with it now. So this is discovering the darkness in your soul. So he's going to this place with his spiritual guide where the suicides end up. And it goes like this. This is the story. The travelers arrive on the opposite shore of Phlegethon, which is a river of hell, the second ring of the seventh circle, and enter the wood of the suicides, where the souls of those violent against themselves have been turned into barren thorn trees. The souls of the squanderers then appear, chased by black bitches and torn to pieces. She says, the ego did not create the soul, and so the ego cannot destroy it. This is the problem with suicide. Among the suicides, Dante and Virgil meet Pier della Vigna, the most trusted advisor of Emperor Frederick II, who killed himself because he couldn't endure disgrace. And Della Vigna says, this is quoting from the Inferno, "My spirit in disdainful exultation, thinking it could, by dying, escape disdain, made me unjust against my own just self." Those who habitually scorn others have in effect built their whole lives upon scorn, which is why they can't stand being scorned. They have developed no other psychological or spiritual foundation. Scorn is intimately related to jealousy. The courtesan who never from the dwelling of Caesar turned away her harlot's eyes, who is universal death and the vice of courts, inflamed against me every other mind. That's quoting also from the Inferno. The whore is a type of jealousy. Type means an example of, or representative of jealousy, which is also related to suicide, in that the victim of jealousy feels that the one he or she is jealous of has stolen or taken his life. Therefore, if he kills himself, it is not really he who is losing his life, but rather the thief who has stolen it. See, that's what I call the psychology of hell. It is appropriate that the travelers have been guided into the ring of jealousy by the centaur Nessus. In Greek myth, this centaur, mythological being, part horse and part man, right? You've seen those. In Greek myth, this centaur attempted to abduct Hercules' wife Deianira, but was killed by her husband's arrows. As he lay dying, he instructed Deianira to collect some of his blood as a love charm. Later, when Hercules was dallying with Iole, a female captive, Deianira dipped a robe in the blood of Nessus and presented it to Hercules in an attempt to win him back. However, when Hercules donned the robe, he died in agony. The centaur's blood was poison. Pier della Vigna is the sycophant who cannot question his leader, which makes him a symbol of false loyalty. The formal and elaborate speech he uses in the Commedia, the Divine Comedy, similar in style to his epistles, is beautiful in a way, but also of a pathetic superficiality. What irony to hear a doomed soul speaking in a mannered, courtly style. This is an example. "By the newly sprouted roots of this strange wood, I swear I never broke faith with that one who was my lord, so worthy of honor," Della Vigna says. But you can't be truly faithful to your lord by betraying yourself. Pier della Vigna's refined style of expression brings to mind how common the vice of jealousy is in artists and in artistic scenes. As William Blake said in Auguries of Innocence, the poison of the honey bee is the artist's jealousy. The wood of the suicides, where those who have taken their own lives have been transformed into trees, is ruled by the harpies, monsters with birds' bodies and heads of women, their voices an inarticulate screech, their faces pale with hunger. In Virgil's Aeneid, the harpies were appointed by Zeus to torment Phineus, who had been blinded and marooned on a desert island as a punishment for cruelty. Whenever a meal was served to him, it was snatched away and polluted by the harpies. That the souls in this circle are menaced by harpies means that in an inner sense they have become harpies themselves. A soul which is like a harpy can appear human while functioning on a purely instinctual level, but once the higher faculties are called upon, it is revealed as monstrous. The harpy is jealousy incarnate. Food in the tale of Phineus represents the giving and receiving of normal affection, as well as normal human speech. In Western civilization, the art of conversation formed an important part of any communal meal, as in the case of Plato's dialogues. The harpies are incapable of participating in this give and take on the human level. The screeching harpy is the other side of the silent despair which has driven these souls to suicide. The suicide feels that everyone else can live and act while he is paralyzed. This is the silence which surrounds him and cuts him off from all human contact. If jealousy is based on the feeling that one's life has been stolen, suicide is an attempt to steal life from the spirit on behalf of the ego. But in neither case can this life really be assimilated. Both the harpy and her victim are starving. That the suicides have been changed into barren trees reminds one of Judas, who hanged himself on the thorn tree. The suicides have acted against themselves in the ultimate perversion of human freedom. So now they are rooted to the spot, as some people who attempt suicide will actually become permanently paralyzed. Trees are an archetypal symbol of life, but the suicide who has turned against life now inherits it as a curse. Pierre de Lavigne explains how the souls of suicides are transformed into trees. This is quoting from the Inferno. When the exasperated soul abandons the body from which it tore itself away, Minos, as a figure in the Inferno, Minos consigns it to the seventh abyss. It falls into this forest, and no place is chosen for it, but wherever fortune hurls it, there, like a grain of spelt, it germinates. It rises as a sapling, a forest tree. The harpies feeding then upon its leaves give it pain, but also provide an outlet. Like others, we shall return to seek our flesh, but none of us may put it on again. It is not just to claim what's been thrown away. Here we drag our bodies when they rise, and along this dismal forest they'll be hung, each from the stump of its vindictive shade. So they're very attracted to their bodies, but they can't have their bodies. They haven't transcended their bodies in any way through suicide. They're bound to their bodies, and yet they can't have them. Jenny says, the tree sprouting from the seed of the damned soul is the ego that cannot die. So anyway, this is just a sample of this, and that's one half of one chapter, and there are 33 chapters of that book. So I would say, in my biased but not uninformed opinion, that this is a book that should be read by anyone who's serious about the spiritual path and wants to see, take a look at what darkness may be in their soul that they need to be purged of on this path. It should be read by psychologists, and I think it should be read by exorcists, because there are places in here where the way the demonic beings think and the lies they tell and the way they twist the truth is beautifully expressed, if you can call that beautiful. So this is a very valuable book, I would say, for anyone who's serious about struggling with the darkness in their souls. And my wife, Jennifer Doane Upton, is now working on the sequel to this, her book on the Purgatorio, which is the spiritual path itself, the path from the darkness that has been discovered in the Inferno through purification and opening to God's grace and opening to illumination and knowledge and love in the direction of paradise. And this book is going to be called The Ordeal of Mercy. But this one is called Dark Way to Paradise. Get it right here. Dark Way to Paradise, Dante's Inferno and Light of the Spiritual Path. So I recommend it. You can get it on Amazon. Thank you.